Hey everyone, welcome to my podcast. And today I'm really happy that you find the time to listen to us because I have someone that I can talk a lot about leadership, communication, influence, charisma, and all those amazing topics that all leaders love. So I'm really looking forward to dive deeper in the conversation with my guest, Richard Reid, organizational psychologist, executive coach, and body language expert. And I can't wait to talk to you. So if you can just tell people something about you and welcome today.
Thank you. Thank you. It's good to be here. So where do I start? So my original background is as a business consultant, and then about 20 years ago, I retrained as a psychotherapist. And really everything that I've done has come from that psychological underpinning. So whether that's coaching, training, organizational consultancy, it's all based on those psychological principles. It's essentially about helping people and organizations to maximize their potential.
Absolutely love it. And okay, so what actually was kind of pulling you towards that psychology side?
It's a bit of a roundabout story, but about almost 25 years ago now, I was working in business consultancy, working within the IT sector, and I thought, I can't stand this. This is really, really dull. And I decided to take a year out and go traveling around the world. And whilst I was traveling, towards the end of my trip, I ended up sharing a tent with a psychiatrist from Wales in Patagonia. And we got talking, and he said, "Have you ever thought about being a psychotherapist? I think you'd be really good at it." So when I got back to the UK, I looked a few things up, went to a few courses. It really just snowballed from there. It was very sort of fortuitous, but it's worked really well for me.
Yeah, I love it. And I love that you naturally, like you were having discussion, conversation, and you realize that you have passion somewhere there and someone tells you that you will be great. So it's really nice that you were open towards that path, right? Like that requires probably a lot of, I guess, strength because it's change in your career, right? So how did you feel about the change when you were going from that business consultancy now slowly going to that psychological side of it? How your clients kind of deal with it and were they surprised?
Yeah, I guess from a client point of view, it tends to help because I think a lot of therapists have only existed within that therapy world. And so, if you're coming from sort of the cut and thrust of the business world, sometimes it can be quite hard to be aligned with somebody who has no understanding of the world that you come from. So I think in a lot of ways, it's probably helped with my credibility, but making that transition was quite tough because obviously you have a certain standard of living, certain level of seniority, and then you start at the bottom again. So you've really got to be committed to what you're doing. And I was sort of juggling the business consultancy with training in the evenings and the weekends. So a lot of hours. But I think if you've got a goal and a passion, you don't necessarily see those obstacles. You just have your eye on the prize. And that's really
Yeah.
what it was like for me.
Yeah, and I love it. It's very similar journey with everyone I talk to, and some people on this podcast as well. When they transition in that new passion part, because we do something for 10 years, 15 years, 20 years of life, and then we finally connect with what is our passion, what we really want to do, and we ask questions: Is this what we want to do? So in that state of transitioning in a new part of that passion, I think everyone is going through the same, right? Like it's a financial struggle a little bit because you're changing the clients, you're changing the businesses, so you're pivoting. So it's kind of going down again and up again and rebuild something new. So that's great that you did it because I think it's tough and I know how that feels to pivot a few times. So I love that you're working a lot in the C-suite level leadership and with some executives and business owners. So I will be curious when we take it from kind of like a helicopter view, what do you see as a major struggle right now, last maybe 6 months, 1 year, in leadership space?
Well, I think there are increasing financial pressures. There's always sort of that financial incentive in business, but I think there's even more of a squeeze now. And I speak particularly with an eye on the UK. Rising taxes, inflation, limitations because of world events. Particularly sort of the war with between Russia and Ukraine. All these things
Yeah.
put pressures on businesses. And what tends to happen is when we're under pressure, as businesses and as individuals, we speed up. When we speed up, that's when we get breakdowns in communication and connection, all the kind of things that are sort of my sweet spot, really. I see more and more of those issues as world events speed up and put more pressure on
Yeah.
things.
Yeah, wow. Yeah, I heard about the taxation in UK and I heard so many people leaving. I'm not going there because we can talk about it probably so long. So leave this issue for today for newspaper.
Definitely.
Yeah, but I would love to, yeah, I love what you said because it's true. Like when we are under pressure, we have breakdowns because we can't really think clearly as well. We don't make the best decisions. So that is very natural process to that. Okay, so how can I help C-suite level leaders? So is that something that you're helping them, like changing the state, or what is your process of helping?
Yeah, well, I think a big part of it is about making people more mindful and aware of what they're doing, because I think, again, when we're under pressure, we not only speed up, but we do a lot of things in autopilot.
Mm,
It's a
yeah,
way of sort of
absolutely.
powering through. And what that means is if you're not aware of what you're doing, you don't have all the resources that you need to be able to make change. You can have all the tools and the techniques in the world, but if you don't know when to apply them, they're gonna fall short. So a big part of it is about building people's awareness. And often one of the objections I get from people when they're trying to make changes, well, I don't have the time to make the change. It feels like an added pressure.
Right,
I know I need to do something different, but I just don't have the capacity. And there's this sort of wishful thinking. At some point it will calm down, and then I can do these things. But it very rarely happens that way. So I
yeah.
guess a lot of the work that I do is about being pragmatic. It's about taking some of these ideas, and even if it's in small, atomic steps, getting people to try and implement them into their existing routine without it feeling like an additional encumbrance. And that's really sort of where I get most of my success is not trying to pretend that people exist in a bubble. It's accepting the reality of their world and then trying to make these small adjustments.
Yeah, I love that. And I absolutely agree. There is so much stuff we run every day to day on subconscious basically patterns
Yeah,
and
yeah, yeah.
things that we don't know about. And I'm still 20 years, trying to learn about all these things, but still uncovering every day a new behavioral pattern that is not serving me. So we are all patterned, right? Like we all have it. And
Exactly.
I mean,
It's work in progress. It always will be for
yes,
anybody. Yeah.
exactly. And we learn, and especially because you learn on the way. So I'm always thinking like there is never end of this, right? Like there will be always something that is holding you a little
Yeah.
bit back. And sometimes you think, oh wow, like I didn't think big enough. And you can't see it, when you go back, it's like I didn't see this. Like it's just so different how we think based on limits or limitations. And yeah, probably I will have questions. So we jumped into where you're helping people, but I'm thinking also, what do you think a successful person in that C-suite level, or maybe in leadership role or business owner, what this person needs to have? What is that the major source for success?
Well, I think two things immediately come to mind. One is resilience, because inevitably there are peaks and troughs, and it's
Mm,
very easy to get bogged down. And again, that will impede your performance. But also, as a leader, people look to you to set the tempo and the culture. So being in command of your emotions, being aware of how you come across is really, really important in being able to influence that. And I think it's often the temptation of leaders to feel that they've got to know the answers to everything, and to fast track things. And I think it's really important that you provide an inclusive environment that actually, from time to time, you show humility. You open yourself up to other ideas. Because nobody has, exclusivity on the good ideas. So bringing more people into those conversations, albeit it might slow things down, means that you've got the potential to create something even better.
yeah. So I agree, and I think there is a big connection with that stress and pressure that you were talking about at the beginning. So I believe people are losing the skill of being open, vulnerable, and having that open
Yeah.
communication and conversation when they are under pressure. So what is now they have awareness. Let's say they have awareness about, okay, something is happening, so I need to regulate myself. So what you will probably advise, or what you will do in that space, that you kind of have awareness that maybe I'm misregulating or something is going on because I can't have open conversations with people. I feel now I'm directing people and they're not listening to me. They don't do what I want them to do. So
Mm.
how you take over, kind of how you take that power and influence back?
Yeah. Well, the thing that I often talk to leaders about is the idea of transitions. So, even in a very busy day, you're moving from one thing to the next thing to the next thing. And we speed up We
Yeah.
become very sort of task orientated. We tend to start to objectify people. Are you facilitating what I want to achieve, or are you blocking it? And I think
Good
what we need
question.
to do is, yeah, exactly. So we don't see people as people. We don't connect with them in the same way as we could do. So I took about this idea of transitions, and transitions is even if you've only got 30 seconds or a minute in between calls, checking in with yourself. And that sounds sort of quite sort of new age, but really all it is about checking with your body. What am I experiencing right now? What is my general energy, my general mood? And then looking at that in relation to the thing that you've got coming up next. Does my energy match with what I want to achieve in this next meeting? And if it doesn't, then it's about having small strategies that you can quickly apply to address that. But I think even without those strategies, if you've got an awareness there's a misalignment, it means that you can monitor it more closely.
Yeah.
Because otherwise we get emotions that aren't helpful permeating into the next meeting. You might have had a very difficult meeting, and then you have a meeting where you need to connect with somebody. If you're not aware that you're carrying those emotions and those thoughts, then it leaves you open to all kinds of outcomes.
Yeah, and I love what you're talking about because I'm all about, shift in the state and energy and emotions. Because before we actually start leading people, we should know how we can lead ourselves or manage our energy and emotions and state because we are bringing that every day to the company, to the team, to the people. So if I feel down most of the week, I always said just don't go to the team when you're feeling down. Go check what is going on and go
Yeah,
reset. Yeah, so I
yeah,
love what you're talking about. I think it's so important. It's such an important work you do. And I will be probably interested to see because we are on the different sides of the world. And I love when I can meet people from different countries and with different experience. So when you're looking at people in general, so what is the probably the pain or impact or what is that behavior of not checking energy and not regulating energy and emotions? What that is costing people because that is massive thing that now we talk about that but before we didn't really talk about that like when you go back 5-10 years
yeah.
ago nobody was talking about energy regulation. It's like what is that?
Yeah, yeah. I think it's massive. It's often a hidden factor in terms of people's performance. And the risk is if we're not checking in with ourselves, not only are we not fully aware of the impact that we're having and not creating an opportunity for us to have a say in how that plays out, but also you run the risk of actually making yourself ill. How often do people go on a holiday, take 2 weeks off work, and they spend the first week either sleeping or they catch a cold?
I know
And that
that's
and
so
that is largely because there's all these things that have been going on for weeks or months that have been left unchecked or unnoticed.
yeah. Oh wow, yeah, I
So
agree.
imagine that over a period of a working life.
Yes.
So I think that's a serious consideration. But I think even in your everyday interactions, even in the course of a single day, you're not aware of the energy you're bringing to situations. You're not giving yourself the best chance of success.
Yeah.
So I think checking in before meetings is useful. And I know it's not always possible or practical, but I think having a dynamic diary insofar as you can is also important because
Mm,
energy naturally varies from day to day. And actually, your energy is going to be better suited to certain tasks at certain times rather than others. So if there are opportunities to
yeah.
move things around or to look ahead and say, right, I've got a meeting with this guy tomorrow, and I know that's going to take a lot out of me. I need to then do something different in the afternoon. It
Yeah.
means we work more effectively. And
Yeah.
you and I probably both know that there are times when you fly through certain types of work, and other
Yeah.
times when it feels like it's wading through a treacle. And largely that's to
Mm.
do with the energy that we're bringing to it at the time. And we tend to blindly stick to activities, irrespective of what the energy is that we're carrying at the time.
Yeah, yeah, or we have someone else managing our calendars, and we
Yeah,
let them
yeah,
do, book us and do whatever they need to do, right, for us. So I always said, yeah, having the boxes or some kind of places in calendar. I'm the same. I know I'm the best in the mornings for all
yeah,
meetings, hard meetings, any negotiations, anything, any sales. I'm just better with with my brain state and probably English, because when you're tired, like your brain works a little bit slower. So I
yeah,
get tired sometimes afternoons or in the evenings. So I'm trying to avoid to have evenings, late evenings meetings. And yes, sometimes we can't, but especially if you're working in a market like US, sometimes it happens that you need to be, on late calls. But as much as you can still arrange that for early morning, right? So I'm always saying it's your choice. So that's a really good point, just to really have that flexibility and understanding where we are and what works for us. So again, it's big awareness, right? Like you're basically talking and taking people back to what is important to me, how I work, what is my energy, what is my emotion, and check on ourselves. So I know we talk about the negative impact, and look, I'm working with people, they have, after 20, 30 years of life on autopilot, heart attacks, loss of relationships, going
Yeah.
through divorces, don't have relationships with kids. And I feel so sad because it's just because they were trying to provide for family and they were
Mm,
so focused on that because they thought that's most important, that they
mm,
forgot themselves in that equation.
mm,
And I think
mm.
you as a business owner, everyone as a business owner is actually really important in that, scheme of being in business. And we totally, I think, forgot for a long time. So I love that you're bringing people back to themselves. So I'll probably ask you as well about, because you talk about charisma a lot. So tell me
Do,
more about
yes.
that. I'm really curious.
Yeah, it's one of those things. So in the UK we have this phrase. It's like Marmite. So Marmite is a bit like Vegemite in Australia. People either love it or hate it. So when you mention charisma, some people really buy into it. Other people think, well, I don't need that. What's that about?
Yeah.
But for me, it's really about using all of our resources that we already have, again, to maximize our opportunities, but also to elevate other people. So this is
Mm.
not just about charming people to get what we want
Oh
out of
yeah.
a short-term interaction. This is about trying to create more positive, sustainable relationships, but also to carry forward, to create a positive energy that other people then carry forward.
Yeah. I
And
love that. Yeah.
when you sort of look at a lot of the sort of charisma training that's out there, it's really about outward behaviors. So if you do this, this, and this, you'll be charismatic. And I start from a different position in that how you manage your internal world will influence how you manifest in the external world. So if you're in control of your
Amen.
emotions,
Yes.
your thought processes, that will naturally translate into how you use your body, how you use your voice,
I
all
love
those sorts of things. But inevitably, there are always ways that we can polish things. So I do a lot of work on body language, a lot of work on voice.
it.
If you think about it, as human beings, we're essentially sophisticated animals. So yes, the content of what we say is important,
Yeah.
but actually
How
how
we,
we
yeah.
respond on a visceral level to other people is based on things like how they move,
Mm.
how they sound. And whilst the words are important, if we want to evoke a positive emotional reaction to things, then we need to buy into those areas as well. And so I often work with people and they're the experts in their field, and sometimes it's a very niche field,
Mm.
and yet how they convey that information suggests that they don't believe in what they're saying, or they're not sure in what they're saying, and that
Mm.
comes across to the people. On the face of it, body language shouldn't make a difference as to whether you're an expert or not, you feel, but this is how we respond to people. This is what we buy into. And we
Yeah.
do it very, very quickly. Within a few seconds of meeting somebody, we formulate a view as to how
Absolutely.
much we respect them, how much we like them, how much we trust them. And again, that's animal instinct. So that's the level that we need to be working at alongside looking at the substance of what we say.
I love it. Oh, I love this conversation because I think what you mentioned, right? Like we see people, they start to have awareness, but they know they're not managing their emotions and energy well enough. That's why I put in the question, because there is a negative impact of not misregulating or not actually
Yeah.
regulating ourselves. But now I was like, okay, let's talk about, before I will ask about positive impacts, let's talk about charisma, because I believe what you said, basically, you can't be really charismatic when you are not okay inside. So when you're not trusting yourself, that was what we did a lot in sales trainings, for example. Like you can't really sell your product if you don't
Mm,
try or service, or especially when you do consultancy, coaching, any services that you provide. If you don't believe that you can do it, or you are good and you are expert, it's really hard to sell it because people can feel it. And this is always what I remind
absolutely.
people, they feel you. Like I can feel you, I can see there is like beautiful conversation. We are very aligned with what we probably teach and do. And it's so many topics we can, uncover today. So
Mm,
I'm so excited that someone understands and actually spreading the message of that. Like we need to try to work or start to work through our inwards, right? Our internal world. And I believe you probably work with a lot of, disconnecting from that limiting beliefs. I'm not good enough, I'm not smart enough, I'm imposter.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Even with the most accomplished people, there will be elements of that. So
yeah,
bringing that out and working with that is just as important as those outward mannerisms that we might talk about. And
yeah,
I think the other part of charisma for me is it's about versatility. So while still being authentic. So when you're dealing with people, people aren't the same. And so it's not about applying a one size fits all to when we interact with people. It's about adapting
mm,
slightly depending on who we're with, the nuances and the dynamics of that conversation. To be able to do that in real time, we need to have spare mental and emotional capacity. If we're overwhelmed by our own thoughts and our own emotions, we don't have the acuity to pick up on what's happening in real time.
yeah, I love that. So now when we look at building the charisma, it's probably coming from first building ourselves, right? Like really understand who we are, connecting to ourselves, being authentic and trusting ourselves. So you can actually come and you can speak to people honestly because that's you. So I think what really is
Absolutely.
missing here in a especially no, I'm not talking only about leadership space. I think it's everywhere because people are so under pressure and stress. So in businesses, they kind of come out and they go to these networking events and everywhere they try to chase business. It's such a toxic environment to
Mm,
me. I
mm,
really can't
mm,
stand it because everybody goes there just to get something. And
yeah.
I think that's when you talk about charisma, I'm always thinking, where actually are those charismatic people? Like, they disappeared because everybody is overwhelmed by stress. So
And
I
it,
think,
and it becomes transactional, doesn't it? As you
yeah,
say, it's I'm here to see what I can get out of you,
yeah,
rather than what can we collaborate on, or how can I help you? And this idea of paying forwards
yeah,
is really important because those are the people we remember, the people who went
absolutely.
out of their way to help us. And so,
Mm.
when an opportunity arises further down the line, I'm more likely to remember them.
Yeah, and it's so important. Like we started to look at business, for example, from different perspective, and we are thinking, okay, so if you want to give first, what do we need to do to be that business that will give first? So we actually redevelop a new way of selling, not selling, basically, and trying to help people and focus on that and where that will take us. We don't mind, and we started new focus on, for example, JVs or partnerships. And when
Yeah.
you're looking at how many people with you can be in a room and instead of trying to get them as a client or referral partner, you can actually start to have totally different conversation about giving and helping, and you realize that you together you can help much more one client together than you just alone. So I'm really like I'm fascinated by that because I think when you bring your charisma, you like you said, having awareness, working on your in the inside world or your inner world, and develop those emotions and regulate yourself. When you becoming more authentic, you can now connect on a higher level. So I believe you can then actually see the vision, right? And you can actually have purpose. And yeah, I love that. That's it's such a great way to transition people through that stages. So, so what do you think is sorry, I talk a lot always, but what do you think it's
No, it's good.
it's
Carry on.
it's the positive impact. So let's say you start to work with someone. So maybe give me some maybe great story of your clients because I'm sure that you have some great transformations that you experience with your clients. So what actually happens? Let's say they don't have results. We talk about lost relationships, partnerships, and health issues and all the other stuff that is coming with all that stress. So what do you see the transitioning from that to something new? What are the impacts, the positive impacts of looking inwards and start to look at ourselves, how we can regulate ourselves?
Well, I think what apart from sort of the obvious positive health implications of starting to manage those things, I think a lot of the time what you see is improved relationships with people, because what you're doing is you're moving away from transactional relationships and objectifying people, and you're starting to show genuine curiosity for people, and what that means is it creates psychological safety. People open up and reveal other parts of themselves because they don't feel they're going to be judged. They don't feel you're just trying to get something out of them. So
Yes.
they open up in different ways, and you have more honest conversations
Mm.
that give you a clearer view on perhaps what's happening in your business, or give you opportunities to create something. And I think when we're transactional, we kind of get the outcomes we expect to get. And sometimes that's okay, but in a lot of ways that can be quite limiting. So showing curiosity for people's positions, even if we don't necessarily agree with them, doing that in a respectful way, it helps us to create something between us. And it strengthens those ties between people. And that's really important in any walk of life, but
Yeah.
particularly within business, having that added engagement. So I think for me, those are some of the biggest things that come out of this. But it's also about validating ourselves more. So you think about most people, we show the aspects of ourselves that we think are socially acceptable, that fit in. And we've all got to sort of come together and make compromises when we're interacting with people. But how much of our true selves do we hide, or do we not even reveal to ourselves? So when we start to have these different types of conversations, it promotes more sharing, more vulnerability, more ability to get validation, give validation, and this is key in charisma. It's not about blending in. It's about saying, this is who I am, and I'm okay with who I am, and you should be okay with who I am.
I love it.
And so, you know, charisma comes in all shapes and sizes, but we tend to have a very fixed view of what it is.
Yeah.
And certainly we tend to regard charisma as being all about the extroverts, and it's absolutely not. You can be an
No.
extrovert and be very charismatic, but I know lots of people who are extrovert and very entertaining, but actually they inhibit other people because their energy is so high and they don't adapt it, that, you know, when they're
Yeah.
dealing with quieter people, those people become a truncated version of who they are. That is not elevating people. That is not allowing other people to fulfill their potential.
And so many times, I don't know if you see that, but so many times that elevated or extrovert energy is actually hiding something, or like it's avoiding to be themselves. And also it feels,
A buffer in some respects, yeah.
yeah, and it feels sometimes very shallow. Like I know a lot of people that are so friendly, but after a meeting they forget you. Like they just totally forgot. Like you don't
Yeah. So
explain.
how important does that make you feel? And this is the point. You need
Yeah.
to come away from these interactions with people feeling like they've validated you, feeling like I want to work with this person, I want to refer this person to other
Yeah.
people. And when it is superficial, it actually ultimately works against what they're trying to achieve.
I think I'm thinking this is actually becoming also a big problem, because you have a lot of people, they go network or they go to different Zoom meetings and they meet people around the world. They have such a big amount of audience, and I'm not saying I'm different. We were building up our email list when I realized, you know, I don't want email list, because it's ridiculous, because you can't really take care of everyone. You can't really give everyone attention, and I want to give my clients, potential clients, people around me, I want to give them attention, I want to give them love, and I want to give them what they deserve. But I realized everybody was focusing so much on that, you know, accumulating on the quantity. And I feel that's very similar through that interaction as a, you know, outgoing and very extrovert type of personality, because you have this wow perfect meeting with someone and you have this awesome joy, and you're like, hey, after the weeks of time, you know, like, can we follow up, can we come back, like, hey, I don't think you remember me, and it just
Yeah.
is weird because
Yeah. How deflating is that? Yeah.
yeah, and you remember the one person, so you expect that the other
Yeah.
person will remember you, right? So there's no really exchange of that authenticity and connection, and a deeper
Exactly.
connection and conversation. So I think when you can't have deep conversation with someone that is extrovert, it's fun, but it's just fun. That's it, and it stays where it is. It's fun for 1 hour or 2 hours, but
Yeah.
the deep connection or deep conversation, I believe, is so much more valuable for everyone, because you can actually grow through conversation.
Absolutely, yeah. You're touching people in different ways
Yeah.
that are more memorable, and as I say, validate those people as well. They come away feeling that they've been seen,
Yeah.
and that's something we all need. We need to know that actually people recognise us and accept us for who we are.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. So there is so much stuff going on here: charisma, authenticity, going inwards and taking care of ourselves first. Don't forget ourselves in this business world, that we need to take care of ourselves first. And it's so much. I love your charisma perspective of charisma, and how important is actually being okay, and then, you know, show up with authentic kind of face without mask
Yeah.
on top of it. And I will probably ask you if you have any secrets or any maybe tips for people how they can start if they didn't do anything, they just in leadership role, and they just through our conversation realize that, you know what, I'm actually stressed, I'm actually under pressure, maybe I can't really have that open conversation with people, I feel like maybe I'm a little bit disconnected. and alone. So what you will suggest them to do something like as a practice or as a thing that they can implement straight away?
Mm. Well, I think the simplest thing is to start to look at aspects of mindfulness. So in other words, deliberate focus in a particular area. And when we do that in relation to ourselves, even if it's just for a couple of minutes at a time, we start to get a better connection with what we're feeling. We start to recognize the things that energize us, the things that don't. And then we can then use that to start to shape and influence our world a little bit more. So for instance, it might be there's a particular activity you do every week. You can rate your energy before you start it and your energy afterwards. Just give yourself a score out of 10. The higher the score, the higher your energy. And what you will probably find over a period of time is there are certain things that really deflate you and
Oh
certain
yeah.
things that really elevate you. And that can start to not only mean you shape how you conduct your working week, but it might be, in some cases, it makes some really big revelations about actually whether you're doing the right thing. Do I need to gravitate towards emphasizing the things that are energizing me and let go of some of these other things? So it helps us to put boundaries in place. And I think, going back to the charisma point, it also helps us to start to develop our brand in terms of our values and our purpose. And that, that's almost like your North Star. Whenever you're going off track, you can remind yourself, actually, this is what I'm about. This is what I'm here to do. This is what is important to me. So it just means we don't go through long periods of life when actually we're off track and we're actually doing ourselves negative impact.
Yeah. So what you would suggest, that this is just probably something that I would love to know, because a lot of people coming with question, okay, so I have my vision, I know like what is my purpose in life, but what if that is not necessary the same vision or purpose that the company they work at or they're employed by is, so there is a little bit of disconnection in that
Yeah.
vision and purpose.
Yeah, it's tricky. I think it's going to be different for different people, but it might be that you can match your vision and purpose in other areas of your life. In which case, you might say, "Well, I can tolerate that because I know I'm addressing that in other areas." But I guess in extreme cases, it might be there are ethical differences. For example,
Yeah,
it
yeah,
might be actually that's not the place for you, or maybe I need to be an agent for change within the organization. So maybe even if I can't influence the big picture, maybe I can start
yeah,
to influence how we do things within my team or my area of the business, and
yeah.
and feel like I'm actually still being true to myself in that respect.
Yeah, love it. Okay, that's very clear, and I love the intake on that. So basically, if I feel like maybe I'm out of the place, there are two options: I can leave, or I can actually create a change and start to look at it how that can be better. I love that, because that is, I think, where a lot of people give up and they're like, this place is not for me, but they don't look at, okay, so how can I change this place when I will do it actively
It,
every day?
it,
Yeah,
exactly. And I think when we're aware of our purpose and our values, we can make more informed choices. So rather than drifting into things and thinking, actually, this is making me unhappy, we
yeah.
can make conscious choices that say, I'm going to move away from that, or I'm going into this, but I'm going into it with my eyes open.
Yeah, so that's perfect kind of understanding as well. Like you mentioned, of course, we're starting with ourselves, regulating energy, emotions, and now we are coming to like actually understanding our vision or purpose. Because when we understand it again, we can start to move things around, and we know what we want and what we need for life. That's such a great clarity. I wish that everyone has that. So they will be so nice in the leadership space.
It's really important, and again, relating
Yeah,
that back to charisma, that idea of being deliberate and purposeful and knowing what we want, it translates into how we communicate, it translates into how we move our body. All these things give messages off to people
yeah.
that say this person's a proposition. I want to align myself with this person. I need to take this person seriously.
Yeah, love it. So I will do one more question, and let's see where we will go. So
Okay.
if you can think about something that can really help people right now, you can just give them one advice. Maybe when you look at a picture of your clients or people that you're meeting every day, and maybe they didn't take action yet, maybe they didn't sign up for any leadership courses, they don't have coach or mentor, but they kind of know there is something wrong. So what you will give them as a maybe advice or tip?
I think the biggest thing that you can do is create space. And creating space is what we tend to feel uncomfortable about when we're really busy and there's 101 things to do. But creating space for reflection is really, really important. It can be reflection about how you're feeling about things. It can be reflection on what have I achieved today? What have I moved forward today? What have I enjoyed about today? So in other words, helping with resilience. Or it could just be reflection that allows us to be more strategic about how we conduct our working day. Otherwise what happens is we jump into the next shiny thing, or the email that comes up with the red exclamation mark next to it, which starts to take us off track.
Yes.
So setting time aside for strategizing, for reflecting is really important in terms of taking control of our lives rather than allowing our lives to take control of us.
Love that. That was such a beautiful sentence. Take control of our lives. That's it. That is the top of the top things that we need to understand. We have responsibility and we can take over and we can take control. So love that. And look, I have so many things that I would like to talk to you about. So there is also space probably how to lead, the digital world, how to go deeper into that, because I think there is a lot of body language and a lot of expression we can talk about, a lot of subconscious patterns we do and how they influence other people. So I will probably ask also everyone who is listening right now, if you have any questions for Richard, or if you want to take it, to different conversation, I will be happy to invite him again for another chat. So
Love to.
yeah, please, thank you so much. Please let us know if you have any questions, submit your ideas, things that you want to ask. And if people want to connect directly with you, where they can find you, Richard.
Okay, well, you can find me on LinkedIn. So it's Richard Reid, so REID, or you can go to my website, which is www.richard-reid, spelled REID.com.
Thank you very much, and I will be sharing that for everyone in description of the podcast, so you will find the links if you miss the spelling or something. So I will share the links to your LinkedIn and website so people can connect.
Fantastic.
Thank you so much, Richard. I love all the conversation. I pretty much stand for everything what you're sharing. So I'm looking forward to seeing if we can find a different time and just do a little bit more digging deeper into these conversations about how to go within, how to connect more with ourselves, and how to really regulate our energy and emotions the way that we can create more influence, impact, and create this beautiful, healthy culture in our environment when we are team leader or the owner of the company. So thank you so much for everything what you shared, and have a beautiful day.
My pleasure. Thank you very much.